Twain wrote, "Many people are bothered by the passages in Scripture that they cannot understand. I've always noticed that the passages that bother me most are the ones I can understand." Twain's words remind me of a couple I'll call the M&M couple, because I like spending time with M&Ms, and I always like spending time with that couple, plus their first names each start with M. And so the M&M couple, they are involved in a breakfast Bible study. They've been involved in a breakfast Bible study for, I think, about 20 years now. Same group of people, a collection of people who've grown and changed and learned over the years, but sticks together and meets once a week as they're able for Bible study. And one particular year was a hard year for the M&M couple, because the Bible study had voted, and they always vote what they're going to study, and the vote was to study the book of Leviticus. All kinds of rules open to interpretations. They spent the better part of a year, and some of the people wanted to just continue with Leviticus for one more year. And the M&M couple over the years had kind of grown, and they are smart. It's not that the interpretations were difficult, it's just that over the years they've become a bit like Twain, more interested in trying to live out the passages they do understand than simply talk about the passages they don't. And we know the passages well, and we know the questions very well, I think. How does one turn the other cheek and do it from a loving heart when someone does us harm? How does a person give away all their possessions to the poor, like Jesus said to the rich young ruler, and then find a way to follow Jesus? How do we focus on the logs in our own eyes and ignore the specks in others' eyes and the little things about others that bother us? The M&M couple, one of the sweetest couples I've known, because they were wise enough to focus on the things that were very understandable, but not necessarily simple to do. And Jesus challenges us over and over again, not so much to understand things as to have a transformation of heart so that we might do some things in our lives differently. The Message Bible puts part of what Butch read this way. It translates Jesus as saying, "Stand up for me against world opinion, and when the time comes, I will stand with you, telling you how you stood with me to God. Don't think I've come to make life cozy. I've come to cut like a sharp kitchen knife. Well-meaning family members can be your worst enemies if you prefer those who pull you away from me. Even a mother or father over me, you don't deserve me. If you don't go all the way with me through thick and thin, you don't deserve me. If your first concern is to look after yourself, you'll never find yourself or me." How much more blunt can Jesus be? Invite us to take a step back from whole church to our individual lives, to our personal stories, to think back to those times in our lives when we have had plans and hopes and dreams and expectations, and when we have worked toward those plans and dreams and hopes and expectations, and when we have run into walls, or as Butch likes to kind of do it, because books sound good up here, when we have run into something that has just stopped us on our way. Or maybe that's the case that we're running into something like that now in our lives, that has stopped us on our journey and frustrated our plans and our hopes and our dreams and our expectations. Jesus is quite clear today, and he seems to be telling us a very hard thing. That sometimes the biggest problem in our lives is ourselves. That life is most heavenly not when we're thinking about us. That life is most heavenly when we're trying to think of God's plans and God's hopes and God's expectations and God's dreams and trying to live into them. And when we set aside our wants and our needs to find out what another person wants and needs to get through this life. That somehow working first for God and working first for neighbor changes everything. I've asked Paula Horner to share a story with us today. It's the story that she shared at a very good night this past Wednesday night. We were sharing several stories, good stories. This one just happened to tie into this morning, I believe, because in Paula's story, you will hear how the prayer shawl group had some plans and had a vision, and how that vision was thwarted a bit. But how in listening, not to the frustration of that being thwarted, but in how listening to the opportunity God would offer, that roadblock became an avenue of God being able to do something very wonderful. So Paula, would you be able to come forward for us and share?
Very large group prayer shawl. Usually there's 4 of us, sometimes 5 or 6. And when we met this month, we talked about who we should be giving our prayer shawls to. We had some that were finished, and I agreed to deliver 2 of them. So I took the first one, and the lady was very appreciative. And then I called the other lady that I was supposed to take one to, and she said, well, that's very nice, but you've already given me one. And I said, oh, well, we checked our list, and we must have inadvertently left your name off the list of recipients. So I had the prayer shawl in my car, and I looked at it, and I thought, well, this must be meant for somebody else. And I went on to work. And while I was at work, one of the ladies that works there came up to my desk and visited with me. She doesn't usually do that, but she talked quite a long time. She hadn't been there on Monday, and she was telling me that she had gone to the lake and had some mowing and some things to do around the lake place, and she just didn't get it all done on Saturday and Sunday, so she took Monday as a vacation day so she could finish up. And then she kind of paused and she said, well, the reason I didn't get it done was because the lady who runs the campground where we have our camper needed somebody to talk to, and she came over and visited with me for a long time. And she paused again and she said, she's the mother of the college student who disappeared in Washington last month. And I said, well, that must have been really hard. It was Father's Day on Sunday. And she said, yes, she and her husband believe their son is alive and were hoping he would call his dad on Father's Day, but he didn't. And I said, are you going back to the lake this weekend? And she said, yes. I said, well, if I bring you a prayer shawl, will you take it to her? And she said, oh, you just gave me goosebumps. The mother's birthday is Friday, and this would be perfect timing. So I went to the car and got the prayer shawl and gave it to her. And I thought, this isn't what we planned for this prayer shawl. We thought we checked our list and made our plans and we were going to do this, but it obviously is what God had planned. And so we delivered it with offers of prayers from Grace Church and from us for our parents who are grieving for their son.
Thank you for sharing, Paula. That gives me goosebumps to hear it again, too. It feels so good to be part of that. I don't crochet. But I like the work that the Prayer Shawl Ministry does, and just to be kind of nearly associated with that and hear how it happened to be in the car and it just fell into place, and it reminds me God's plans and abandoning ourselves to God's plans, getting lost with Jesus' plans for our lives. It offers such rich opportunities and can touch other people's lives with hope. Will you find a way to get lost with Jesus? In Jesus' plans for the world, will you set aside your own today? Some